Okay, so welcome to the Node.js. I think we're streaming anyway. Welcome to the Node.js Node add-on API team meeting for December 6th, 2024. We'll follow our standard approach of going through the project board that we have. So let me open that up. And I will share. That's maybe a little bit big. Share, there's the button. And if you can keep an eye out, if Kevin ends up joining, let me know. And no, that's not it. Okay, share, right. I think that should be the right one. So I guess anything in oh, I think I'm sorry. No, why is it? Okay, I'm going to stop sharing for a second. It's like my browser, that window has decided to stop working. Okay, let me try again. Okay, here we go. So anything in done that we should go through? Nothing looks too out of the ordinary there. I guess if not, have PR. So I think Node API define version 10. We did chat a bit about this last time, Gabriel, and I think we said like we're in no rush. Just that's the issue to go through and sort of discuss what we would include or not, right?
Yeah, Changjiang, you had that question about exception um, behavior. Uh, I'm good either way. Whatever you guys decide, I'm happy to either include it or not.
How long has it already been baking for?
I don't know honestly, but probably a while because I mean I mean we haven't had a release I think in like over a year if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I
So
blame it is having over here. It's changed in like September of 2023.
yeah, okay, yeah, I'm happy to change that then.
Okay, so that's
Cool, thank you.
Yep.
seems like that's moving on. Anything else we should chat about that one?
Nope. Pretty
Okay.
good.
Delete reference in basic finalizers.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot to write there. So I believe there are no issues for Hermes if we proceed with it. So,
Right, okay. I think, yeah. So you've said that you tested it out and it looked fine, right? Was that
I didn't test it, but I just kind of look for the code, and
okay?
code does not use it because in Hermes implementation we do it a little bit differently. They effectively instead of like V8 API already kind of built in, kind of interacts with garbage collector, right? But on Hermes implementation we interact with garbage collector directly, so we have more freedoms there. So technically.
Cool.
So we literally participate in garbage collector cycles. So technically, Hermes, we pretty much have a kind of callback, and callback asks like, "Give me all routes," and we kind of go in there. Like, so if you think this system much more powerful, like much more freedom, what we use, not use. So technically, from the perspective of Hermes implementation, it shouldn't be. I don't see any concerns with this PR. I think it's great change.
Okay, so is that I just typed up like we discussed in the team meeting today and you confirmed. If I get that right, confirm that he looked at the Hermes code and it's not a concern from the Hermes perspective.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, I'll add that and I will remove my block. So how did I do that?
Think, yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
But no mind. I was saying that it would be great to have this landed because I think it's essential to make the most significant basic finalizer use case, which is object wrap in Node add-on API to avoid using an API post finalizer in most cases, because I think object wrap has to invoke digital reference for every object wrap. And if it's required to call post finalizer to delete the reference, then I think it will be a really bad regression. So I'm really happy to see that this is no issue in Hermes as well. And yeah, looking forward to have this landed.
Okay, so sounds good. So now it just needs a couple of reviews to say, yes, it's okay.
Yeah, I really appreciate any reviews. Please have a look on it. Thank you very much.
Okay, so yeah, people can do that. Sounds good. Okay, and thanks, Vladimir, for looking at that. Actively in progress. I don't know if there's anything you want to discuss, Vladimir, on the live node front this week.
I didn't make progress in node.js repo, but I was actually working on kind of using it inside of node API.net, kind of learning some scenarios and some limitations. I think like one limitation I found that with runtime, I would like to have something which can associate some external object. It's kind of very similar to what we have in Node API for environment. We have a ability to associate some kind of instance data or something like this. So I believe it's also like for this libnode API would be great to have similar capability. Because I need somehow to associate a C# object. And
Is that on like associated to what? To the, like in the callback, some of the callbacks, they get that extra data?
Right, because technically, like a different callbacks, they only receive in effectively native kind of embedding runtime. And for me, I need somehow to get C# object out of it. And without this association, it's kind of difficult to do. I can do it currently doing through some kind of global kind of hash table, but I found that in some cases I can't really express kind of then, for example, C# object already been disposed or something like this, it becomes much more complex. So
Yeah, it seems like it would.
Go ahead, sorry.
I was gonna say, it seems like, yeah, like having, if there's a bunch of callbacks, it would be nice to be able to, when you're starting up, you could say, and here's the data to pass to those callbacks. That actually makes, thinking about it makes a lot of sense.
This sounds to me a lot like an API wrap, but instead of wrapping a JavaScript object, you're wrapping an entire node world, basically, right?
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. You want that one-to-one. And then we do have a callback for when that whole node world gets disposed of, right? So that you can so that you can correspondingly dispose of the associated data, right?
Also don't
Because
have
then, yeah, so you gotta worry about that because then you're back to square one, right? You need to know when the world is gone.
Yeah, and you see, like it's what I'm saying. Like it's one thing like to have a good theoretical API and even have some unit tests, but then I can try like real scenarios. Like let me use it from C#, right? I have real needs for one of our projects, and I'm learning all these different corner cases now. That's hard way. But anyway, I would really appreciate if you guys have any time to spend to kind of look at this stuff. The only thing I didn't update documentation, so don't judge documentation strongly yet. But I'm interested to learn your opinion about APIs, and especially in some cases, what I'm doing is one of the questions I have. If you could open it up.
Sure.
So, like for example, then inside of a Node API code, we say we have finalizer, and typically functions finalizers. What we do, we have like finalizer callback, and if you can open the code itself.
Okay, so files
File
change.
changes. And if you go to this, okay, a little bit up, it's mostly kind of, you see, most code is actually new code is about testing.
Ah,
But this
right here.
node embedding API API.h header, this new header file.
This one or this?
Embedding API.
Okay, sorry. Okay, no embedding if you're right. This one. Okay, yep.
.h like header file. Okay, yeah, let's.
On
Oh,
the
it's
net.
too big.
Okay.
So what approach I'm taking here? Like if you scroll down a little bit, so we do have all these different, for example, callbacks, right? But what you see over here, just if you stop here, okay, you see I'm defining such structs which I call in, for example, like say if you look on line 249, right? I'm defining this embedding start execution functor. And functor is just kind of term I use like in C++, is saying that functor is kind of, it's a class. Think about Lambda, right? Like Lambda have some state and some convocation stuff. So, and for each Lambda, if you like, you really need a way to invoke this Lambda. You may have some data associated with Lambda. And at some point, you need to be able to release this Lambda. So rather than in this C-based API, rather than having all these different data be separate, I kind of group them into this kind of small functor structure. And so one of the main reason I wanted to do it is actually being able to better kind of interop with other languages. So for example, in this case, I was able to build very simple function which can, for example, adapt any C++ lambda to this struct. And in many code, you can do much cleaner association. It also kind of helps in some sense in other languages, like say in C#, I found it also looks quite natural in the end. But anyway, I want to learn your opinion. And if you see, like I have two type of different structs, like some of them called functor and some of them called like functor ref. So idea that functor is something with kind of system supposed to own, like it kind of capture it at some point, and at later time it will release it. Whereas functor ref is we just effectively need some callback which we execute in effectively immediately, and thankfully we're not going to hold to this data after this function call finishes up. So thankfully it will be caller responsible for cleaning up this data. Whereas like with functor, it will be responsibility of our API to clean it up later.
What would be interesting, do you have somewhere that like, I guess probably in the tests that show what this looked like, right? Because
Right.
like
And also,
this you're kind of like, okay, but like it would be interesting to see like in the C code what it looks like using it.
yes, like you can click, like say, click for example API preload, embedded test API preload.
All right.
So you
Okay.
can see how, for example, this usage would be. Like say we have this uh, example, we see this check status node embedding runtime on preload, right? And we at some point we have this adapter what I call S functor, right? Like and to this adapter I'm just passing this lambda, right? And this lambda is being adapted to this functor struct, right? So essentially, it shows like how we can use this C-based API, just simply adapting, say, C++ lambda, or like to this struct.
I guess is there a like this is so did you say this is C++ code or C code?
This
It's
is C++ code.
right. So what would the C code look like?
C code.
Is there a
Good question. I didn't write any test in C code. All tests actually written in C++. But I think it's a good point, like how we can write it in C.
yeah, just because like if it's a C API, it's interesting to see what the C one like, okay, you've got the C code, what does that actually look like?
I'm wondering how this will be distracting from the convention in Node add-on API because the Node add-on API provides a similar experience with C++, but for finalizer in Node API C functions, it doesn't support LAMP. C++ lambdas, but Node add-on API wrapped it, and we can use lambdas in Node add-on API. So I'm wondering, do we need to do this kind of wrapping in the C level API? I mean, we can provide another layer of C++ wrapper to make this more ergonomic in C++, and we don't have to, we can be simple in the C layer.
Yeah, it's a kind of question I have to you guys. I found it to be kind of yes, we definitely kind of introduces additional layer of indirection because technically it's not just callback. It requires actually these callbacks are actually part of the structs and we kind of supply it. But what I found that in some cases, say you need to have say two functors, right? So what these two functors mean, like you literally need to pass 6 parameters if you have just C API, right? And just readability of this API is become kind of difficult because you need to pass effectively data for one functor, like you need to pass invoke method, you need to pass release method, right? So technically, but if you look at the API which you're using just with structs, you essentially just have 2 parameters. It's much more readable in some sense.
I think it would be good to see what it's going to look like in C. Because that's kind of I think what Chenzong's also saying, like we should compare with like what's it look like if we're using Node add-on API versus what this looks like in C. And like then the wrappers can end up making it nicer if needed, or if we look at it and see and that seems like, oh yeah, okay, that's not that like that seems intuitive, then less of a concern.
I'm
Okay.
wondering, besides the how you like, because we are making some kind of stable API in some sense, how will be different on the API stable perspective? I think there are no differences if I understand it right, because if we are going to add new parameters, both approach doesn't provide API stable guarantees.
No, so yeah, from the point of view of API stability, there is no difference. So technically, these structs are being passed as by value. So it means like we're not able to add anything into these structs in future. So these structs are kind of fixed. So technically, in some sense, it's just instead of passing 3 parameters, we pass in say one parameter, which is struct, which effectively just has exactly the same 3 fields. So from the layout point of view, there is no advantage one way or another.
Yeah, I see. I was just thinking about how, like, besides from how it looks like, if there's any other advantage between the two.
Yeah, the main advantage, which I thought like it's just kind of a little bit better readability, and like in this example, I was building some kind of smart template, like for example, as functor, which can adapt to kind of any lambda to this struct. It's pretty much, I would say, being able to adapt. Effectively, you have one parameter and you pass in lambda is one parameter. So it's much easier just to get something as input and convert it to one output, right? Because if you have, say, like 3 parameters, I would be always required somehow to either build this special wrapper function, like in C++, which will do it for me, or somehow create these parameters and pass it differently. So technically, this way we just simply can pass one parameter, can even be converted on any wrappers.
Cool. Yeah, I don't have a strong opinion right now. I just thinking that we have a precedent for Node add-on API port, and we have, I don't know, maybe it's a good idea to keep this style aligned between the two API sets.
Yeah, I think a good next step is if you could take one of these and like convert it into the C, like so we can see like, okay, here's what it actually looks like using the API, right? And then we
Okay.
could, that'll make it easier to compare that to like, well, what are the existing Node API functions look like and how is it different or not, right? Like it may not be, this looks quite different, but it's maybe not that different when you just use the native side of things, like the C level thing.
Okay. Anyway, like if you guys have some time, like please have a look. And I'm kind of mostly interested in about opinion about certain kind of decisions like this. I agree that they're a bit different from what we have today in Node API. It's why I kind of pointed your attention to it. In some sense, like a kind of it's relatively different. And then I spoke with Jason Gincherov. He said like maybe something what the team maybe not agreed with. So, I want to make decisions one way or another, like a bit earlier before we kind of
I think
going too
we
far.
like if the ultimate goal is to use it in like C++ or C Sharp, I think they are eventually going to be wrapped. So in that case, they won't be looked like so different if how the C APIs were designed because they are eventually going to be wrapped. So I think it'll be interesting to see how you are going to use it eventually.
Well, I definitely, I can easily see people using the directly in C as well to just say like I'm writing some C code. I want to load up and start some scripts. So it's interesting to understand that side too.
Yeah, makes sense.
Okay, so 55877. I don't know if there's anything to discuss this week, Gabriel, on that one. I think actually you'd mentioned you were going to take a look at that one, and so we just
Yeah,
had
I
a
didn't really
chance.
have time for that. Sorry.
Okay.
I'll do my best.
Yeah, no. Okay, crash inside Nashi array dash a period of no usage. This one, I think we already discussed that, and so it's looked like they've acknowledged our suggestion to run it a Valgrind, so probably nothing to discuss on that one. NIP thread say function is very hard to use safely.
Yeah, I think this is being checked in another pull request.
Okay,
Yeah. This is the
so there is a
corresponding
pull
issue.
request for that, and that one doesn't have. We don't have that tagged here and has PR, right? Or is that
It's a pull request about this one. Yeah, we just discussed it.
right? Okay. Ah, yeah. Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Good. And then all major GC events, and I know looks like Kevin. I think Kevin said he'd take a look. I don't see any updates, so probably nothing to discuss on that one.
Yeah. I think
Go
before
ahead.
you are going to drop out, can we take a look at the last item in the need to charge column?
This one?
No, the need to charge column.
Oh, needed. Oh, sorry. Yep. This one?
Yeah, this one
Okay.
was pretty new and it's complaining about the deprecation annotation in the Node API header file, and it's specifically for the API module register. I think
Okay.
this was related about when we introduced the runtime version annotation
Mm-hmm.
and we deprecated the old register function. But in the sense of Node API, I think when we say deprecate, the intention was not going to remove the function, I mean, we are not going to remove this deprecated function. It's just that we are encouraging people to use the new function. So I'm thinking about, should we remove the deprecated annotation in the Node API header file?
Yeah, I looked at this issue today morning and trying to understand, reading their code and just trying to understand what they're doing. So technically, just some background for the team, like they doing effectively some kind of a libnode integration, right? And but they can't use this add kind of linked module because add link module requires environment to be created first. But what this add module does instead, it effectively creates some kind of it's like registered modules before anything else. So it kind of creates effectively some kind of static structure. And it seems like this scenario requires it. I didn't go through all the code, all the details, but it sounds like it's kind of important for this scenario. And the quickest way to address the issue is like Cheng Zhong said, like just to remove this deprecated attribute for now. Even we don't recommend people using it anymore, and maybe not use from our code, but it sounds like some people already have dependency on this functionality. And we don't have any alternative way to do the same through libnode C++ API, like, yeah, embedding API.
Yeah, I think the way I remember it is along the lines of what Shenzong said is like we wanted to discourage people from using it, but we weren't planning to necessarily remove it at all. I'm okay if we remove the deprecated, if that's, you know, if we decide like, okay, well, no, like we don't actually like there's a use case where you can't just use the new approach, that would make sense to me that like maybe then
I
we
think
say like, okay, you could change it by in terms of like we recommend you use the other approach, but it's not always possible. So this one will remain it's fine with me.
I
The
think
thing this thing was deprecated in context of node modules being loaded from separate DLL. If you remember, like the difference between old approach and new approach, the old approach required some code being executed and with load DLL. This DLL was calling this add module, creating some static structure. Instead, we said the code now loads DLL and just finds some function and invokes this function. But this scenario for this code is a bit different. They don't load it from separate DLL. It's all inside of the application. Everything what they care, they want to create some kind of registration, which kind of created before any environment created. So they're using this API a little bit, not exactly how we intended to use it to start with. But nevertheless, there is no alternative to what this API.
Gabriel, you have any thoughts or?
Yeah, it's hard to say. Like, I mean, you know, we have so much deprecated stuff in Node.js that we cannot simply drop. That I don't think this is such an egregious violation of that.
So most people will not use it anymore because we effectively
Exactly.
changed our macros to use new approach.
Yeah.
So technically speaking, if we remove this deprecated tag, I mean, most people will not use it anyway. But we're not allowed to remove this API in future anyway. So
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
the question like who wants to do it?
Right.
I
And
can
it
do it.
doesn't actually affect anything, does it? Right. Like
No.
it's
Only
not breaking for
compilation.
them right now. So there's no necessarily a rush to.
The issue is like some people, they do say like any warning considered as error. So
Sure.
technically, in this case, people actually get affected. Like for example, in Office, many of our projects, we treat warnings as errors.
So basically though, yeah. So like I can volunteer to take a look. It's just basically removing that flag.
Yes.
one of the
I
things.
think
And
the suggestion was to remove the flag and add more examples with the new approach,
okay,
Yeah,
so that if yeah, please go ahead.
go ahead. Sorry. I didn't mean to
Yeah, I
interrupt.
mean, if people are really hated using the kind of deprecated API, then I think the current comment doesn't explain about how people should migrate to the new approach. So I think like the author mentioned that probably we can provide more explanatory examples in the header as well.
okay. So does this capture? We agreed we'll remove the flag and then it might add more examples of the new approach, but like there's no rush on this, right? Because if I get to it, it wouldn't be until next year. If I don't know if anybody else has time to take a look at it before then, but
We can split up it in two different kind of PRs. One of them just removing this deprecated flag should be quick and dirty, quick and easy. Sorry.
Yep.
I can do it quickly, and
Okay.
then
Cool.
can explain it. For explain is just I don't want to take this valuable space in header file. Okay, just question like where do we want to explain this stuff?
I think just replacing the current deprecation commands will be okay-ish, because if people are really looking at how to use this API, they will probably notice the document about this function, and they will see that we are encouraging them to use the new approach instead of this function.
The thing actually for this scenario, they will not be able to use new approach. This is the issue. Because our new approach relies on the scenario that we load DLL, like a node DLL as a DLL. And in this scenario, their module is not in separate DLL. Their module effectively inside of their application. So effectively, they're using this thing which actually been designed originally for kind of external modules. They're using for embedded scenarios, which has never been intended for. But embedded API does not have alternative. So it's a kind of another bad thing.
Well, yeah.
So I'm just going to add this if it makes sense. So like I think we've agreed, we'll remove the deprecation flag and then add some more examples. Vladimir, you volunteered to do the first PR to remove the deprecation, and then we'll explore what makes sense as documentation.
Ideally, we should have better embedding API to address this scenario. Like,
Well, I think that's also the comment. Isn't that what you're working on, the embedding API that maybe should cover this as a better way to do it, right?
right. But yeah,
Okay, I'm gonna go, so I'm gonna paste that, and then who would like to take over? I'll make you the um the meeting owner.
I think I can be the host and run
Okay.
the remaining one.
Okay, so here I'm going to make you the host.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah, so thanks for all your work, and I will see you in I guess basically in the new year. So thanks.
See
Bye.
you.
Merry
Bye.
Christmas, Happy New Year.
Yeah, you too.
Happy New Year. Merry Christmas.
I think I'm going to share my screen. Are you seeing my screen which shows the project board?
Yes. Mhm.
Cool. Thank you. And taking back to where we got dropped, I think we are discussing about the tutorial columns. Anything specific that people would like to bring up before we dive into the list?
No.
No. Well, let's see if there's any updates in the list. think there's no updates on this one. Anything specific that you want to bring up in the need charge columns? This one is quite new and I reproduced locally to see if I can find the issue. I ran this test in the Node add-on API test repository, but I didn't reproduce it, so I just commented that if they can provide a new, more reproducible setup, and probably, yeah, also ask for their Node.js versions to see if it's specific to a old Node.js version. And yeah, let's wait for the author to respond on the thread. Anything that, and that's all of this issue. And yeah, we discussed this one last week, and I think there was no updates until now. We just discussed this one, the application one. I think that covers most of our list. Do you have any other specific topic that you would like to bring up?
No, I don't.
All right.
Well, then, I think I'm going to return the remaining 20 minutes to you, and let's see you on GitHub, and see you next week.
Yeah, see you next
All
week.
right. Talk to you later.